Welcome to the back half, where we examine how the past has shaped the present and how even in the back half of life there's still so much to learn and experience. I'm Sean Bugg, a gay Gen Xer and writer who grew up as a good little boy, got wild in my 20s, then settled down in a big gay world I never would have predicted. This episode, we're going back in time to think about what it means to be gender affirming and what it meant to me as a cisgender kid growing up in Kentucky. So when I was in the 3rd grade, my dad brought me into the bathroom to show me how I was different. I might have suspected something was up because of a visit to our family doctor the year before that involved a fairly intimate physical examination, but I was 6 and wasn't picking up on anything being out of the ordinary. So when Dad had me pull down my pants, I had no idea what was going on. "See," he said, "you're supposed to have 2 of these." Now that was a surprise. Turns out I had only 1 testicle in my scrotum, and I had no idea that situation wasn't as genetics intended. To me, I had just gone from being a normal little boy to being a little boy with a birth defect. Dad assuaged that by letting me know that I wasn't missing one, I simply had an undescended testicle, a fairly common thing for young boys. Since it hadn't come down on its own, my parents had scheduled me for an operation to repair the inguinal hernia. Dad didn't use that language, I was ahead of my class but not that far ahead, and moved my left nut out of my belly and into my sack. That's my language, not my dad's. Not long after, I went to the Hopkinsville, Kentucky hospital where my urologist, the reassuringly named Dr. Good, performed the procedure. I don't recall much about the stay aside from waking up in the night after the surgery with a sudden urge to puke and ripping out my IV trying to climb over the rail of the hospital bed to do it. What I do remember is finding out that my undescended testicle had actually been a benign tumor-like mass and the doctor had had to remove it. Turns out I actually was a little boy with a birth defect. I was literally different from all the other boys and a part of my body that everything in my environment and culture had told me was central to being a man, my genitals. It was the first time I felt shame about my body. From that moment on, that shame was constantly poking and prodding me. I avoided ever getting fully undressed in front of other boys, meaning I always changed in and out of swimsuits in private. I obsessed with how my pants fit, convinced that the empty space on the left would make a telltale sign. When puberty and middle school arrived with a looming experience of PE class with locker room and showers, I kind of lost my shit. My dad came to me as I was crying in bed, and between racking sobs, I managed to get out my absolute terror. Mercifully, he comforted me and told me we would go to Dr. Good and see what we could do. And that's how I ended up undergoing a gender-affirming surgery in the summer between 7th and 8th grade, having a silicone-based testicular implant placed into my scrotum. It wasn't perfect, the implant was smaller and left me a little unbalanced. Dr. Good assured me that they were giving me the largest available. I just happened to be packing a lot more in the natural one than most guys. He also told me that the one I had was more than enough to get the job done with the ladies, which I already knew at that point was irrelevant, but I kept that to myself. So I headed into 8th grade and my PE class without feeling like I was a complete freak, just a partial freak like every shy, closeted gay kid feels in the hormonal frenzy of a gym locker room. That one surgery made a world of difference to me and how I viewed myself as a boy, well on his way to becoming a man. I no longer felt less than male or partially castrated. The surgery was what I had desperately needed to feel whole. To be clear, back in 1980, Dr. Good and my parents weren't referring to this procedure as gender affirming. I'm using that term now because that's what it was, and it's important that people who've never gone through something like that to understand it. And yes, I'm talking about young trans people and how important gender-affirming care is for them. I'm sure some people would hear this and claim there is no similarity between cisgender kids, like I was, having surgery to correct a so-called minor birth defect, and transgender kids seeking medical care to align their bodies with their sense of self. But it is the same in many ways, and it's not a matter of cosmetics or aesthetics. Our sense of self, for almost all of us, is deeply tied to our physical bodies, our genitals, and our secondary sex characteristics. There's a reason men obsess about their penises and mercilessly mock those who are judged less than or damaged, because we fear not being seen as a man. We don't question the mental trauma that many women experience after mastectomies or hysterectomies, or at least we don't if we have a soul, because we know how deeply that connects to their self-image and self-worth. My life would have been worse without medical intervention to make my body match my sense of self after an event beyond my control, a tumorous testicle, had damaged that sense. Not having the surgery would have left me to the whims of unnecessary trauma, and believe me, having even mildly deformed genitals as I did was hugely traumatic. Trans kids and their parents should have the same rights and options for care and treatment as my parents and I did. No legislature pressed to outlaw hospitals from performing the surgery that helped me. No activist hacked my medical records to humiliate me in public. And no court determined that my testicular implant didn't actually have anything to do with gender and therefore could be outlawed, because my gender identity happened to match the genitals I was incompletely born with. We are being urged from all sides to ignore the plight of our transgender family, friends, and colleagues in the name of expediency and moderation. But it is neither expedient nor moderate, or moral, to shun fellow human beings because of some group of consultants who decided elections can only be won by indulging bigotry and hate. My country did better than that for me. We should do better than that for them. If you don't know much about trans people and the attack on their rights to live freely in this country, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation has a list of resources you can access, including youth-focused groups like the Trevor Project. You can also find more information with the organization Advocates for Trans Equality. Visit transequality.org. Links to all those are in the show notes. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Now let's go out and make the world a little bit better for ourselves and everyone around us.